Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited to have you here today. We are continuing our Protective Factors webinar series. We will be talking about social connections today. That's the third protective factor within the protective factor framework. So I am excited to have you all here today. We are recording this meeting today so that if you miss any of it or want to share it out with anyone, review it, you will be able to see a recording of the webinar. It'll be posted to USVE Prevention Team's YouTube channel. And we will also be sending that out along with a copy of the slide deck as well. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Clarissa Stebbing. I am a prevention specialist at the State Board of Education, and we'll be talking to you all about social connections. So to get started, I thought that I would be remiss if I didn't give you all the opportunity to connect for just a moment when we are talking about social connections. So if you would please introduce yourself in the chat today by just sharing your name, the school or district that you're with or other organization, your role, and then just share one activity that you enjoy doing that helps you feel connected with your family and or your friends. So I'll give you some time to just put that in the chat, and then we will move forward with the agenda once you've had that opportunity. All right, looks like we have people connecting just by phone calls, text. That's great. Hiking, love that as well. I know there's more of you here, so I'll give you some time to enter your information. Watching your kids play sports, that's great. Hanging out, laughing, simple, but so wonderful. Volleyball. Now we're getting the introductions going. This is great. Biking, riding, hiking. Few hikers out there discussing a good book, playing with grandbabies and reading. Great, love this. Well, if you're still working on getting your introduction in the chat, put it in there. We'll be able to read those introductions as the presentation goes on. I want to make sure we get through everything today, so I will move forward to our agenda. But like I said, just continue putting your introductions into the chat. We're so glad that you're here today. So today the plan is to give you an overview of the protective factor social connections. As I mentioned before, we are in the third protective factor. We've already discussed concrete supports in times of need and knowledge of development. And so I'll be providing you that overview. And then I'm really excited to hear from Principal Milton Collins today around 12:25, 12:30. He will be giving us an overview of the things that he has done at Lincoln Elementary to promote social connections and foster that sense of community at Lincoln Elementary. And I think it's a real treat to have him here. So really excited to learn from him today. All right, so we'll jump right into our learning intentions. So my hope for you today is that you will walk away from today's webinar with an understanding of how the protective factor social connections benefits students, and as well as being able to identify ways that social connections can be promoted within a school setting. So we want you to walk away with a bunch of ideas that you can try, see what works for you within your specific setting and within your specific role. So let's define social connections within the protective factor framework. This is, so when a student has social connections, that protective factor in place, what does that look like? So students have healthy, sustained relationships with peers and adults, And I just want to point out that it's the quality of the connection that really counts. It's not the quantity. So and what does quality look like? So that's the second bullet point on here. Students' relationships promote a sense of trust, belonging, safety, and a sense that they matter. So that is a piece of what a quality relationship can look like. And then thirdly, students build and maintain the skills needed for quality relationships. So they are building and they're building those skills and maintaining skills such as being able to assert boundaries, emotional regulation, recognizing emotion within themselves and within others. They're communicating their needs. They can cooperate in a group setting, so they can take turns, they can share, they can compromise, they can lead at times, as well as letting others lead at other times, and they can communicate and share what's on their mind, self-advocate. They can negotiate, they have conflict resolution skills, and relate to people who are different from them. These are all skills that help in maintaining quality relationships and being able to build quality relationships. So what are the benefits of promoting social connections at school? We have some research listed here. Research has shown that students who have positive social connections at school, both with their teachers and with their peers, tend to have increased school attendance, increased grades, are less likely to drop out of school, and are more likely to ask for help when needed. They're also less likely to use tobacco, illicit drugs, and drink while underage, and are less prone to emotional problems, eating disorders, or suicidal thoughts or attempts. We know that a student who is using substances, misusing substances, or if they're experiencing emotional problems, that not only is not good for their health and for society at large, but that does have an impact on their academics as well. So there really are a lot of benefits to promoting social connections while at school. In addition, healthy social connections can help mitigate the negative impacts of trauma. And research shows that the single biggest thing that helps kids recover from trauma and maltreatment is having a stable, supportive adult who believes in them, who supports them, and who models and teaches effective coping skills. Okay, so next I want to talk about how we can implement this protective factor of social connections school-wide. So as kind of on that systemic level, we'll get into the classroom shortly, but school-wide, what can we do? One is examine the data from the latest school climate survey that you have, and any other data source that you have to determine what areas to address. So you're looking at, okay, what are our strengths? Where are we doing really well? How are students feeling about school and the relationships that they have at school? What's that culture like? And we're looking, and like I said, we're looking at strengths. We're looking at opportunities to make adjustments and to grow and improve the culture and the connections within the school. We can also create a culture of school connectedness by developing a process and opportunities to ensure that each student has a connection with an adult in the school. One way that I have heard of this being done is the school leader will have a meeting, a training where they have printed off the pictures and the names of every single student in the school, and they post them on the wall. This is, private. And then they have each teacher go around the room and put a sticker or a check mark next to each student that they have some sort of connection with. Oh, I know about the student's home life. I know that the student loves soccer. I know that the student is a great artist. So they go in and they put that check mark or that sticker next to that name. Then they go and they look and they see, hey, which students don't have a sticker or a check mark? Which students are missing some sort of personal connection with an adult at this school? And then they go in and intentionally determine who's going to connect with that student and how, so that each student does have some sort of connection with an adult in school. Third, we can encourage opportunities for students to develop healthy relationships with adults and peers. We're encouraging them to participate in extracurricular activities. We're encouraging them to have opportunities within the classroom to connect and to do group work and things along those lines. Also ensuring that Utah's prevention requirements, these are state law requirements, are being met. A lot of the prevention requirements are really good about promoting the protective factor of social connections. So the positive behaviors plan, suicide prevention program, and Botman life skills training, all of which are required within schools on some level, are opportunities for students to create meaningful relationships, and they're opportunities to learn and practice skills that help develop and maintain relationships. Other things to think about when implementing this protective factor on a school-wide level is to provide equitable access to opportunities for students to connect. So for example, after school programs, after school extracurricular activities, providing bus transportation following that after school activity provides equitable access to all students. If a student has to take the bus directly after school and doesn't have a way to get home after an after school activity, they don't really have access. So we want to think about those things. Are we providing access to all students to connect? Also reviewing policies through the lens of fostering school connectedness and making any changes as needed. So this may not necessarily be in your realm, but you could always advocate it if you notice something, you notice a policy that prohibits connecting for some reason, then you could be an advocate about making change and provide some suggestions on how to do that so that we really can foster school connectedness. So I want to give you all the opportunity to put in the chat some suggestions that you might have to foster social connections at school. We are in a room full of experts. It's great to be able to learn from each other. So love to give you just a moment to jot down a couple of thoughts that you have to help foster social connections in schools. Maybe you have a specific example that you have heard of being implemented, or you've implemented it yourself and it's worked well for you. And so I'm going to move on, but put your thoughts in the chat. Great, if you're already doing that, fantastic. So continue to put those ideas in the chat so that we have a bunch of ideas listed at the end of today's webinar and we can share those out. All right, so when making a decision to focus on promoting social connections on that school-wide level, consider asking yourself the following questions. One, does each student have a relationship with an adult in the school that they could go to for help if needed? And my Post-it note example, or not Post-it note, but the sticker example from earlier, that's one way to determine if they have an adult in the school that they could go to for help if needed. And then if not, which students should we intentionally be connecting with? Thinking through those things. What can also ask yourself, what can I learn from our school climate survey, our SHARP survey, and other data sources that are available to your school about how connected students are feeling with others in the school? So it's one thing to kind of guess or assume, but it's another to have actually asked the students through a survey and then see what's kind of the general feel and what changes may we want to make and what are our strengths that we want to celebrate as a result of what we learned from that data. Okay, so let's talk classroom implementations. Strategies for facilitating teacher-student connections. We'll start there. Establish, maintain, restore is a method that's been shown through research to cultivate positive teacher-student relationships. And so I wanted to talk briefly about each element of establish, maintain, restore. So establish, this is kind of a framework that can be followed that's been shown to foster those positive connections. So with establish, some ideas that you can do to establish that relationship is to simply introduce yourself to your students and their families at the start of the year or the start of the semester. This is a really great way to build trust. You can introduce yourself to them through, especially if you're introducing yourself to families, you could do this through email, through letter, and within that introduction, share your interests and hobbies, share what you love about your job, share what you love about the content area that you teach. So if you are a science teacher, what do you love about science? Why did you become a science teacher? When you share those things about yourself, that can really help build trust and excitement for what is to come. Also share with your students what they can expect in your classroom and how it relates to their lives and their future, and their lives now and as well as their future. Maintain. So to maintain your relationship, once you kind of introduce yourself, you're starting to establish it. When you intentionally dedicate time, interest, attention, and support to students, you're maintaining that relationship. Another strategy is to greet each student at the door, and better yet, greet them by their name whenever possible. This can go a really long way in establishing that connection when they know that you know who they are. Also take note of positive and negative interactions with students and aim for a 5-to-1 ratio. So if you catch yourself with a particular student constantly telling them what not to do or what to do instead, maybe ask yourself, okay, wait, what's something that they're doing really well? Have I told them that lately? I better do that. So just remembering that 5-to-1 ratio for positive to negative interactions. And then finally, restore. Every relationship has its ups and downs, and every relationship at some time or another would probably benefit for some sort of restoration. And so just some strategies with this restore piece is to give students the opportunity to start each day with a clean slate. Yesterday may have been a really bad day. Are we going to hold it over their head, or can we allow them to start fresh? Can we let them know that we are starting fresh? Separate the deed from the doer and avoid labeling students as problem students. Apologize when needed. We're all human. We make mistakes. That's totally normal. But when we apologize, when we do make mistakes, that can go a really long way in maintaining that relationship. Also, focusing on solutions and not problems can go a long way as well. We may have some really challenging behaviors in the classroom that we're trying to deal with. If we focus solely on the problem and the challenge, then that can deteriorate relationships. However, if we start to think, okay, this is a problem, what is within my realm of control? What are some solutions that I can suggest for myself to prevent this problem? That can help with relationships as well. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to, in the chat, put in any suggestions you have for enhancing teacher-student connections. And again, I will, feel free to continue to put your ideas in the chat as I move on to the next slide in the interest of time. But we really do want to hear from you, your suggestions that you have for enhancing teacher-student connections as well. All right, so next we'll talk about fostering connections between students. So setting classroom expectations at the very beginning and continuing to remind them of expectations of a culture can help foster a culture of kindness and friendship. That's can go a long ways. Hey, this is what we expect in the classroom. We are friends, we are kind, and this is how we treat each other, can be helpful in fostering those connections. Scheduling time at the start of the year and even throughout the year for students to continue to get to know each other and connect, even if it's just brief, can also go a long way. Even here at USBE and on our prevention team, we do an icebreaker activity every week during our team meeting. It doesn't take long. Yesterday, it was just a would you rather question, and we went around the room and shared would you rather. It's just a really small, short thing that can be done to foster that connection. Also, teaching students social skills can really be helpful. Some students come into the classroom with minimal social skills, and so we can really help build those up. These are relationship building skills, communication skills, conflict resolution skills, and then also giving them opportunities to practice can be really helpful in fostering connections between students. Additional activities would be including opportunities for peer-to-peer connection during academic activities through cooperative problem-based learning, debate, simulation activities, student-led activities. Other group work can be really helpful in fostering that peer-to-peer connection. Encouraging student participation in extracurricular activities. And then you might have some students in your classroom who are really struggling to connect with other students. You may want to consider referring them to the school counselor for assessment for possible Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions. Again, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I want to give you the opportunity and put out the ask to please share your suggestions in the chat for fostering social connections between students. All right, so when you intentionally want to implement this particular protective factor in your classroom and you really want to promote social connections in the classroom, we have a few reflection questions here to consider asking yourself. So one is, which students might need additional support in developing and maintaining friendships? So thinking through specifically, what are their names? Who seems to struggle? What can I do to support them? Ask yourself these questions. Second, which students might need additional support in developing social skills, and how can I support them? Hey, I've noticed this kid really has a hard time cooperating. What can I do to help, or sharing? What can I do to help support them in that, learning that skill? Third, how can I show my students that I care about both their learning and about them as an individual? It's not just, it's important for the student to understand that I don't just care about how well they do on that history test. It's important for them to know, hey, I care about how you're doing as a person. I care that you're feeling comfortable, that you're feeling okay, that you are learning, that all of these things are important. And finally, we don't want to forget about our parents. Parents are such a huge influence on students' lives. They're really the most important influence on students' lives. So let's connect with them to help build this protective factor together. One way to do that is to consider sharing with parents the social skills students are learning. And so, hey, we've learned about conflict resolution today. And then invite them to provide opportunities for their students to practice that skill at home. Another thing you could consider doing is to just simply encourage them to talk to their students about the friendships that they have and the other relationships that they have at the school, so that they know about those relationships and how they're going. And so with that quick overview of the protective factor of social connections, I would love to turn the time over to Principal Milton Collins, who is principal at Lincoln Elementary School, so he can share with us some strategies, some tips, some of the things that he has done to really promote this protective factor of social connections and build that sense of community at Lincoln Elementary. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and you can take it away, Principal Collins. We're so excited you're here.
Hey, Clarissa, thank you so much for this opportunity to share and to speak with this large audience. I've been seeing some of the verbiage in the chats, and so just excited to share. I just want to start out by just introducing myself, and I know some might ask, who is this guy? Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. And first of all, I'm the proud principal of Lincoln Elementary School, home of the Bobcats, and they do hear a Bobcat growl every day. So I'm giving it to you. But kids hear that every day, and so it's embedded in who we are. Kids know that they are true Bobcats. Even when they leave here and go to a different school with a different mascot, they know at the elementary level they are Bobcat at heart. Okay, so I'm in year 38 in education, year 29 as a principal, assistant principal, and I've been all over the place. I started out my career in Illinois for 6 years, Wisconsin for 14, Arizona for 10, and been in Utah for 8 years now. And people ask, how did you end up in Utah? Well, I was recruited to Utah from Arizona. My former assistant principal, Sherry Kennedy, is associate director for special ed for the Granite School District. She's my assistant principal at Dos Rios Elementary School in Phoenix. And so she had an unfortunate death in the family, decided to move back to Salt Lake City. We stayed in contact, and she kept telling me, like, you need to come to Utah. We need you in Utah. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know about Utah. What makes Utah so special, right? So I came up for a visit. Of course, fell in love with the mountains. Like the scenery is like the best thing about Utah, the mountains, and fell in love and decided to interview and got hired on in the Granite School District, which for me is the best school district. Maybe others might argue that, but it's the only district that I know that I've been in. And so I'm proud to be representing the Granite School District. Um, with social connections, it all starts with me. And in order for it to start with me, you need to know just a little bit. Like I was born in Mississippi, born and raised in Mississippi, raised by a single mom. My mom passed away 2 years ago, so she was my superhero. My dad died when I was 7. I only met him 2 times my whole life. First time I met him age 6, and a year later, my mom came home and said, your dad passed. So my dad passed away age 7. First funeral I ever go to. And I just remember like yesterday, I'm at this funeral, sitting on the front row with people that I didn't know, no emotions, no feelings, because I didn't know him. And I just kept looking in the back at my mom because she wasn't a part of the family, and just trying to look in the coffin to see what my dad looked like. And so I remember that like yesterday. And so born into poverty, growing up poor, taught me some valuable lessons. And working in Title I schools, when I look at the needs of our kids, I was that kid. And so my passion runs deep when we talk about social connections and how do you connect with students. It all starts with me as the principal, right? My attitude, my daily attitude dictates everything. My daily attitude creates that culture in the school where everybody understand that this is a safe, nurturing environment for students, and not only for students, for my teachers as well. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. But I do want to share that. Anybody ever heard of this book? If you don't feed the teachers, they eat the children. You ever heard of that? And when I talk about feeding the teachers, I'm not talking about treating them to Cafe Rio or any of your fancy restaurant. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this. So every morning, uh, teachers don't have to be here until 8:20. I arrive every morning at 7. So I'm in the saddle, which is my chair, from 7 to 8:20. And my staff don't have to be here to 8:20. At 8:20, I leave my office and I go to every teacher on my campus and I say, good morning. There are teachers, I say, quick good morning, how you doing? Happy Monday, happy Tuesday. There's some teachers I go in that classroom, they're playing music and we dance, building those social connections with my teachers. Not only teachers, custodians. I stop and talk to my custodians, cooks, any principals out there. If you talk to those cooks, they'll bake pies for you. And just so you think I'm joking, I have a pie here one of the cafeteria workers baked for me. I mean, listen, I'm living proof of, building those connections, and you get gratification, and then it just helps build that culture. So it starts there with those teachers. Every morning I stop everything. Secretaries know when I leave this office at 8:20, I might not come back up here till about 10 o'clock because I'm going to every teacher. And then when that bell rings for students to come in at 8:40, I'm going to every classroom every day to say good morning to those classes and say hi to those kiddos, looking them in the eyes, making sure everybody have what they need. And then there's one particular third grade classroom that I go to every day. And if you don't know about Snoop Dogg animation video called Affirmations, Google it. It's the most amazing thing ever. I go in this third grade classroom and the teacher will put on Snoop Dogg affirmations and the kids get up and we sing and we dance together off of that song. Google it. It's a great motivational tool to start the day off with. And so I do that every day. But on top of that, like the thing that I try to instill in my teachers is that we a lot of times we focus on the test scores and whether the kid know how to read or write. Listen, if you don't build that connection with that kid, academics is minute. I mean, I tell people all the time, before you can get in here, you got to get in here. If you can get into that heart, man, the academics, the teaching becomes so easy because that kid know that you can count on them. Now, some people question that, right? Like, I mean, even me, my very first day of teaching third grade at Lorenzo Smith School in Hopkins Park, Illinois, I learned the value of social connections with kids. Because you go to college for education, there's a lot of things that they don't teach you about that first day in school. Your very first day as a first year teacher, they don't go over that specifically with you, right? You go through that yourself. So I'm teaching third grade at Lorenzo Smith School in Hopkins Park, Illinois. Have 30 third graders. 29 of them are on point doing the assignment. It was just a get to know. I need to know what you know, quick assignment. I had one kid in the back. Every time I turn my back, disrupting. I redirect. Do it 3 times, redirect. And then the last time, the fourth time, I just go over to him and I lean over, it's like, hey, I need you to get busy. This third grader tells me I'm not doing SHIT. He said it. And I didn't know how to respond to that. My natural reaction, what? You can't talk to me like that. I'm yelling at this kid. Get out of my classroom right now. Go to the principal's office. You're not going to talk to me like that in my classroom. And I put this kid out, right? Didn't know. Later on that day, the principal came down and said, hey, Mr. Collins, and you sent the kid down. And one thing I would encourage you to do, try doing a home visit. It's like, what? Home visit? I can go to his house? I didn't know that. Yes, I'm going to his house because I'm going to tell his mom he's not going to talk to me like that, right? So I drive to this kid's home. And as I'm driving up, I'm like, something is not quite right. I get to the door. There's 5 adults in this house. I smelled marijuana. I saw drinking. There was loud music. Those adults was having a good time. And here's my third grade student run from the back. Mama, that's my new teacher. And I'm looking at him like, man, I kicked you out of the classroom today. You showing me this love changed my whole perspective of teaching. I knew right then and there I had to save that kid's life. That kid was in an environment that was unstructured. There was I saw so many negatives. Eh, The next day, I moved that kid by my desk. I talked to him differently. I taught him differently. I treated him differently and built that relationship with that kid. Every little thing that he did right, I blew it up. I made him stand up. I told the whole class, look, I'm so proud of you. And that kid, to this day, my friends, that kid is an electrical engineer. He makes way more money than me. And it started with me making that connection with him. We are the keys to how far our kids go. And I know elementary, it starts with us. If we can embed some good quality skills, social connection skills with kids that they can take on to the higher grades, is going to benefit them, right? And so every year we start off with a theme, and one of my most favorites since I've been here, and I did a keynote speaking on this. Every child is one caring adult away from a success story. Think about that. Think about when you were in school, how your positive connections with teachers. And I just think about Miss Kegler, who lived to be 103 years old, my third grade teacher, who was the first teacher to ever say something positive to me that stuck with me. And I was doing a writing assignment as a third grader, and she just got close to my ear and said, Milton, you have beautiful handwriting. Just make it bigger. And she just walked away. And oh my God, that motivated me to want to write better. That lady became one of my heroes that inspired me to write. And so it's those connections that builds kids socially. Another thing that we're doing here, we did a survey, a panorama survey, and it was centered around a sense of belonging. We wanted to know how many of our kids felt like they belong here at Lincoln. And so last year we had 64% of our students felt a sense of belonging. And I saw that number, people were like, oh, 64% is good. No, no, no. 100% of our students should feel a sense of belonging here. And how do we do that? So I challenged my staff. I said, okay, so here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at why only 64% of our kids feel a sense of belonging. So I challenged my staff. I was like, think about this. How many non-academic conversations do you have with your kids? With each one of your kids that are in your classroom? How many? No, we're not talking 2+2, read this paragraph. We're talking about, how you doing today? Look at that beautiful smile. I love your shoes. I love that shirt that you're wearing. How often do we do that? So I go even a little bit further. How often, when you're in the hallway on your break as a teacher, and you're walking out, example, fifth grade teacher walking down the hallway on a lunch break, and there's a little kindergartner or first grader walking past. Do you interact with that child? Do you look at them and say, hi, how are you doing? Do you need any help? Where are you going? Or do you just stay in your zone and keep going? The only way we build that sense of belonging is that each kid know that every staff member on this campus, whether they're in your classroom or not, that you care about them. That's building that relationship. So we done moved up from 64% to 71%. So we're making some progress, but we're not stopping. We in order for kids to succeed, we have to establish those relationships. And when I came in 2017, Lincoln was in turnaround. Lincoln was in the bottom 5% of the worst schools in the state academically. That was 2017. Fast forward to the end of the 2024 school year. So we go from an accountability score of 32.4, from 32.4 to 52.9. And people's like, oh my God, what did you do? What are you guys doing? It starts with me. It starts with me setting the example of what relationships look like. Now, we have 424 kids on our campus. I'm willing to bet you that I know 420 names. And the reason why I don't know those other four is because they just got here. I take pride in knowing students' name. And Clarissa, you mentioned that, knowing students' name. Do you know how huge knowing a student's name is? I remember in Arizona when I was a principal at Coolidge High School, and I stand out in the corridor like I do now, greeting every student, looking them in the eyes, because the eyes will tell you everything. And I'm saying good morning to students, and I'm saying their names. That was a junior. This girl was in 11th grade, no trouble, just a good student, and I knew her name. She walked past me the first day, well, not the first day, but the like the third week of school, and I said hello to her in her name. She goes home and tell her mom. Her mom calls me and said, Mr. Collins, thank you so much for knowing my daughter's name. I know my daughter's not a troublemaker, but she said she walked past you the other day and you said hello. You said her name, and that means something. And people was I think it's just a gift with me, and I'm pretty sure others have this gift too. You learn kids' name, but for me, it's a gift because man, an adult can tell me their name. It might take me a couple of times, but a kid one time in that name stick. I mean, I my third grade kids from 1987, I know every last one of those kids' name to this day. That's why I say it's a gift because the older we get, we start to forget things. Man, it's just that gift that I don't forget nothing about kids. And that's the mentality. Okay. Now I know I've talked a lot. I'm gonna say a few more things and then I'm gonna end this. But I told you every morning I do the announcements and we started off with the Bobcat growl. We do our pledge. We have a motto that we believe all kids can be successful, and we tell them that the Treasure Hunters Pledge is for all staff. As an adult and a treasure hunter, I'm committed to search for all the talent, skills, and intelligence that exists in every child. And every child has a possibility of success, no exception. And we say that every day. And not only do we say it, we believe it. And once we start saying it, once we start believing it, the kids start believing it. And it's because of the environment, the safe environment that they're in, that we create this environment for kids where they want to be here. Because I don't know about you, but for me, school was my safe place. And it was where I wanted to be because I know I had some people in that school that cared about me. And all it takes for some kids is one negative interaction with a teacher that could derail them for the rest of their career in schools. I've seen it because I've been a principal in elementary, junior, and high school. And when I sit down with high school kids and talk to them about some of their troubles, they'll mention, I can't trust that teacher, Mr. Collins. Why you can't trust that teacher? Well, I had a teacher in second grade that was just like that. So things like that that kids say, that's why it's so important that social connection, that it starts with the principal, the expectations of teachers, because if we put that in place, the kids will follow. And I know that I'm different. I can remember when I was in school who like the principal was the bad guy. Like you saw the principal coming, it's straightforward, no eye connection, nothing. I was like, I do not want to be that guy. I want to be the guy where there's connections and kids run to me. And that's what I feel every day when I come here on this campus, man. I feel like the Pied Piper because elementary is where it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I am divorced as a result of being a high school principal because I couldn't cut the professional life off and get to my personal life, which was my family. I lived at that school as a high school principal. If there are any high school principals that are here today, you know what I'm talking about. Like you live at that school, you feel like you have to be involved with everything. And that's what I did. I was at swim meets, golf, wrestling. I was on the sideline for the football. I felt like one of the coaches, basketball. I was at everything and getting home every night at 10 o'clock. My kids asleep, my ex-wife mad. I couldn't cut the difference off. I couldn't let work go. And I learned a valuable lesson, and that lesson was I got a divorce. So I learned from that. But then I discovered elementary. I was like, oh my God, where's this been my whole life? Like all of this true unconditional love. I can see a kid in the hallway and 2 minutes later see that same kid and we still laughing and connecting with each other. It's just a whole different ball game, whole different level of love. But I tell people all the time, like, this job is important, but man, your family, you can't forget about your family because they are important just as well, even more important. But man, when you set foot in a school, you got to put all differences aside. You got to put anything that you might have going on personally in your life because all of our kids need that. They deserve to have a trusted adult that they know that can come to them, that's going to listen to them, that's going to provide a safe place for them, that's going to make them feel like this is their home. And for every kid that we have, Lincoln is their home. We have kids at Granite Park. They have siblings here. They come back, Mr. Collins. I miss Lincoln. I was like, you want to re-enroll in kinder? We can start all over again. I'll let you come back. Okay. And finally, my friends, we have a school song. I gotta leave it with you, man. We are the Bobcats. You know, we sing and dance and we put music to it. And can you just imagine 424 kids in the auditorium singing? We are like no other school because this is who we are. We're the Bobcats up in here. We're the Bobcats up in here. Can you imagine that? In an auditorium, 420 kids singing that song, and they love it. They go home, they leave here, they come back, they're singing that song because they love it, and they love it that they have a principal that will make a fool of himself to create a song and sing and dance with them daily. Okay. Now, I know I said a lot. Anybody here, you're more than welcome to come to my school and visit. It is a special place. Like I said, 24 different languages spoken here, very diverse. But man, I'm telling you, 424 of the most amazing little kids that you will ever meet in your life. And we've created that environment for them. And I would love to share that environment with you. So, uh, you ever want to come visit 450 East, 3700 South, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84115, Lincoln Elementary School. Come visit, please.
Thank you so much, Principal Collins. Yes, I think that deserves a round of applause. That was so wonderful. I love your energy. I love that all of the fun that you have with your students and that you know them by name, that you look them in the eye and know them by name. What a simple thing to one, look them in the eye, say hello, even if we don't know them yet.
Well,
I think
Clarissa,
that's
let me tell you this: the look in the eye. Listen, guys, I can talk all day long, but man, I'm telling you, like when I'm greeting kids and they're walking in, the eyes would tell you everything, right? And if they're not smiling, they're not happy, man. I pull kids over all the time. It's like, hey, are you doing all right? What's going on? Elementary kids would tell you everything. They would tell you mom and daddy was fighting last night. They would tell you that somebody threw a rock through their window. They would tell you everything, you know? And it's my job, it's our job to make them listen. I understand that something's going on at home, but listen, you here with us today. We're going to make you feel like a king or a queen today. You're going to put all of that behind you, but today you're going to feel good while being here at school. And you let us know what it is that we can do to help you while you're here at school. So looking them in the eye is very important. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
And I think it's great to reiterate because it's a simple gesture, right? To look them in the eye, like you said, it tells them a lot or tells you a lot, and then you
Mhm.
know what type of follow-up questions to ask to really connect. And I think um, fostering that protective factor, really connecting with other students and teachers. Sometimes that takes we're intentional thought.
Hmm.
And then I imagine it's become a habit for you
Oh
to
yeah,
go into
absolutely.
all the classrooms and
Yep.
everything. So
Yeah.
that's great. And I also like that you mentioned that the balance of like you're giving it all. You're giving it all in the school building. And then you're also remembering your relationships at home as well. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that's fabulous. So I do want to open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions for Principal, oh, can you see that? Okay, yes. Okay. For Principal Collins or myself regarding building that sense of community, social connections, the floor is now yours. You can put it in the chat or take yourself off mute to ask your questions. Tanya.
I have a question that I've been wanting to ask you. Principal Collins, thank you so much for coming and being here with us today.
Welcome.
I really appreciated the sentiment where you said one bad interaction with an adult can make or break the child's school career, right? And so I'm wondering if you can maybe share out a couple of ways. We also know that our teachers are tired, right? And some of them have been teaching for a long time and maybe don't have the best interactions with our students. So I'm wondering if you can share a couple of ways that you've been able to talk to teachers and help them understand the importance of those positive connections and those positive experiences with students, building those social connections with them instead of the negativity.
Well, and that's a hard thing to do, man. It's hard, but it takes practice and it takes example. And like I try to be that example every day of what it's like, especially like some of our kids, come with a lot of trauma, and it's hard for you to decide on whether or not like I mean, let me see if I can get him to read a paragraph. But you're not going to be able to get that kid to read a paragraph if you know that he comes from a home where this might be the only meal that he gets. That there's so much going on in the home that there's no focus on education. So it's up to us to take a step back and think about that, right? And think about how important it is for us to build that social connection with that kid. And once you train teachers, and here's another example. Like, we look at data all the time. And I tell my teachers all the time, listen, if you set a goal and you don't reach that goal, you're not going to be judged on whether or not you reach that goal. I judge you on effort. I judge you on effort. And not only with that, your effort every day to do your very best to connect with every kid that walk in your classroom. Do your very best to connect with every child in your classroom. And I told you, like, we try to build connections where you're connecting not only with students in your classrooms but students not in your classroom. So we have what we call positive pause, right? A teacher can see a kid doing something, being safe, respectful, and responsible. They get a positive pause, they put it in my box. We do Good News Thursday when I do the song and we sing and I pull from the box. I got millions of little trinkets here that kids love. If I pull the name, they come to my office and they get it, right? Well, the key to that, a teacher cannot give one of those positive pause to their own students. They got to give it to a kid that's not in their classroom, right? So that's another way of building that positive connection, seeing a kid doing something good that's not in your classroom, and you're going to reward them with that little ticket. Oh my God, they love those little tickets, right? But Tanya, that's a hard thing to do, to 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 ask a teacher to not so much dedicate so much time to this standard, but to dedicate some time to just asking a kid, how you doing today? Something is that simple instead of open up to page 45. Okay, let's do math. No, how you doing today? How you feeling? Are you okay? Something that simple can change the direction and change the culture of your school. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do, to get teachers more into social connections as compared to dedicating 100% of your time on academics. I know I might have went off a tandem, man. I sometimes I go into these little tandems and sometimes forget about the question, but man, like I'm just a huge I just love making kids feel good, making kids feel special, making kids feel like they belong. And who better to set that example than the principal, right?
Thank you so much. It looks like we have a question in the chat. It says, do your teachers do relationship building activities daily in class? And how do you build that buy-in? Maybe you've talked about this a little bit, but if you want to expand on that.
I mean the relationship piece is embedded, right? It's so our kids they have breakfast in the morning in the classroom, right? And so we first bell ring at 8:38, and kids know that they have to line up in their spots, and teachers go get their kids. So that's the start of our daily routine of teachers going out, meeting their kids and bringing them into the classroom, right? And when they go out, I ask them to focus on the eyes, because the eyes will tell you everything, right? Don't just get into the habit of, okay, line up, and we're walking in, but but you look in each one of your kids in the eyes to see if they're all right. Because like I said, the eyes will tell you everything, right? And so even within the classroom, like there are certain teachers that have little sofas, uh, the bean bags, where if kids are having some issues, they know that they can go to that safe space and know that somebody's going to come there to take care of them, whether it's the teacher, whether it's social worker, BHA, those are just some of the activities that we have embedded in the classroom that's daily and that's routine, right? And that teachers know that it's about establishing that daily relationship with kids. There's no one specific thing that we do. It's just embedded in teachers to know that we have to connect with kids. Because like I told you, that sense of belonging, we're looking for 100%. We're at 71%, but we're looking for 100%, that kids feel a sense of belonging as a result of your connection with those kiddos, your one-to-one connection with those kiddos.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think that's all the time we have for questions right now. Really appreciate you coming to share your strategies with us. It's very, very, very inspiring. Love your energy. We will be sending these slides out to everyone within the next couple of weeks. And within those slides are some resources that you all can access to learn more about social connections and how to develop those relationships. So we'll keep an eye out for that email that will be coming in a few weeks. Next month, we have our webinar on resilience. So we hope that you will be able to join us for that. If you haven't registered already, I've included the registration link and QR code here. We hope that you all can attend. It should be good. And finally, if you would like to contact the prevention team, I have our contact information and our website here. We really appreciate you joining us today, and we hope that you have a great day. Thank you.
And Clarissa, I'm just going to put my email address in the chat, just so if anybody would like to reach out or come visit, you have my contact information. Just shoot me an email. I would love to take you on a tour. I'd love to share some more ideas that I have, because I know we only had a short period of time, but I could talk all day on building relationships and social connections. So
Thank you so much, Principal Collins, and we will send your email out with our slides if that's okay with you. Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, thank you all.